Hi folks, Mark and Titus back for part 2 of our Cleveland oiling system explanation, fixes, whatever you want to call this video. First thing what we're going to do is this is an engine that doesn't have, this is hydraulic lifter. The valve train is set up on it. It hasn't been primed or anything yet. You can see the lifters right now are depumped a bit. So what we're going to do is fill this full of oil. We're going to put our 5 quarts of oil in here. And we're going to test this with just a drill on priming it. And again, this is not hot oil, this is room temperature oil, so it's not exceptionally thin like it would be if you've gone down the road and your engine oil temperature is probably at 180, 190 degrees. The oil is not that hot, so we're not going to see 100% of the benefits that we would in some of these oil fixes because the oil viscosity is still thick. And like I said in the previous video, we could probably put some real thin fluid in there, like a kerosene or maybe even a diesel fuel or something like that, but I really don't want to contaminate this engine with that kind of stuff. But what we're going to first off do is we're going to set up and we're just going to read what kind of oil pressure this does. Now, as I said, typically these engines usually make around 86 pounds. This gauge may be slightly different. The one on our dyno is usually pretty consistent. So when we're dynoing the engine, we first start them up pretty consistently. I can look at when we're doing a Cleveland, it should be 86 pounds plus or minus a couple pounds. And if it's not, I know we need to go look at something. But anyhow, we're going to start off with that. We're going to prime this up with our drill, look at the gauge, see what it does, and then we're going to try a few things just to see how things work. Maybe try a few little experiments or something like that. We're pretty fortunate we have the opportunity to do all this sort of kind of stuff. Not everybody can tear down an engine, usually do a test on it, then take it to a machine shop, have it all redone, do another test and whatnot. So, and likewise, what we're going to do, no smoke and mirrors, no magic. We're going to use the same oil, same filter, which is our restrictive pieces. We're going to take, so we're not using like a thick oil here and a thin oil there, vice versa. We're physically going to drain the oil out of this engine, take the filter off this engine, and put it on this other short block. And as I said in the previous video, this is hydraulic, so the restriction is everything done. What it's going to do in the push rods and everything from the lifter up is really done in the lifter. This one is a solid lifter engine and does have bushings in it. And we're not even going to put push rods in it. We're just going to let the lifters flow as the lifters flow. So what you see is what you get when it comes to the lifters. And then we'll even do a couple little things on the oil pressure gauge, and as well we turn this to just demonstrate the whole leak. The idea of what we're trying to really do is fix a leak in the oil system between the oil pump and the main bearings. And that leak is the critical part in the oil system of the Cleveland that we're trying to fix. So with let's get on to it. Let's take our 5 quarts of as we talked about earlier in the last video about pumping your pan dry and all that sort of stuff, we just dumped 5 quarts of oil in the top of the engine. Look how, and this is cold oil, thick. Look how fast it's going down to the bottom of the engine. It's not going to stay up there very long. So no matter how much of this oil you pump up to the top, it's not staying out very long. So if your cam bearing clearances, your whatever oils you have due to oil pressure, think about this. Your rod bearings, your main bearings, your cam bearings, what comes out of the bottom of the lifter and everything like that is all going right back to the back of the pan anyhow. So how can you be pumping that part of the pan dry? The only part of the engine that comes, the oil that comes up from here, is the leakage at the top of the lifter and what comes up to the tops of the push rods. So this whole theory about pumping the pan dry, like I said, it really raises a red flag when I see that in a discussion, because and that applies to all engines. This is not just Cleveland based. This is Ford, Chevy, Mopar, LS, modular, whatever you want to do. That theory applies to all those engines. So let's see. Let's make sure our oil filter is tight. Spin our oil. All right, I'm starting to feel a little drag on the oil pump now. Make sure we don't have anything squirting out on the floor. Okay, so we seem to be good on that. Okay, so as you see, we already got oil coming out of this particular lifter already, and I just squirted that guy. So you see how much oil is coming out of that guy. Now, as I turn this drill pretty slow, and I'm trying not to get let this drain down just a little bit. Let me see if this engine is, yeah, it's pretty level. I want to do this pretty quick. I want you to watch the oil pressure gauge and see really what it does. It should go to about 86 pounds. So, all right, so right now it's just shy of about 72, 73 pounds. And this is me turning, I'm not so sure what the RPM of it is. This is a Milwaukee drill on low speed. Let me see if I can put it on the high speed. Oh, I think my battery's not wanting to. So there we go. It's just shy of 80 pounds. And that's what we have there. And you can see we've already got oil to all tops of all the rockers already. So this system is full of oil. Now we're reading a pound or two heavier. I think that has to do with the speed of my drill. So we've seen right now that what we've done is we have all this oil coming to the top end of the engine. We're starting to actually drip off the tops of these, but we've seen this thing go to 86 pounds. So really what I want to do now is I want to demonstrate a leak. Well, we didn't have 86 pounds. We actually had about 78 pounds, it looked like, on that setup. So let's just go to the middle of the engine here, cylinder number 2, and let me rotate this engine over. Just pick a random cylinder here. Okay. So let's make a slight leak. Let's actually take one lifter out of a hole. Now this is going to demonstrate what a leak between the oil pump and the pressure gauge actually does. As you can see, I got a bunch of oil here. We got nothing on the pressure gauge. Not even moving the gauge. And you can hear how much faster my drill is going. Now granted, that's an extreme leak. So let's try something else. Let's just try something. This is a Chevy diameter lifter. Now this lifter is 30 thousandths smaller in diameter than what a Ford lifter is. So let's try to plug some of that hole with a Chevy lifter. You can see it's. Now, as I plug some of that hole, you can see that now I'm getting 25 pounds of oil pressure. And I still have this leak. So really, that's kind of what's going on when your engine is running and you have 16 of these leaks rather than just one bigger one. We sort of simulated what that does when you have all 16 of these guys sort of leaking. And again, like I say, this is with thick oil. So if you were to do the math, which we could possibly do, we could take our circumference of the lifter times its clearance and come up with a cross-sectional area of how much we're leaking, which may or may not be slightly greater, which is going to be less than what this lifter is, because we know we're not going to have 25 pounds of oil pressure with a different style lifter. But again, that is, and I'll even press this lifter all the way over to the side to try to block that leak. And so as I do that, you can see we get 40 pounds of oil pressure. And you can see we're not getting nearly as much oil inside the lifter galley. Now if I release that, our oil pressure drops in half. And you can hear the drill slow down. So that's what happens when you have this leak around all of the lifters in the engine. So let's try one other thing. Let's take out our little plug here. So what I want to do now is take the plug out of the side of the block here. I'll put the fins on here. Now, I have to admit, I've never done this experiment before, so this is going to be new to me too. All right, so let's put our correct Ford lifter back in this guy and go back to what we're doing. All right, so I'm going to go back to so we're really about the same sort of pressure that we had with our cold oil on that. We really didn't gain anything there. But let's go back. Here's what I'm interested to see. Oops, let me put one Ford lifter back in, one out. Okay, so let me see. Now this, when we did this before, we got 0 oil pressure on the gauge. And we still do. So now, let's put the Chevy lifter in there with our leak. And we're really sort of getting the same sort of pressure there. Let me try to push the lifter over and cause it. So with this cold oil and the external oil line, we're really getting about the same pressure either way with the external line on the outside of the block. Kind of what I expected with cold oil, but like I say, I've never done this particular experiment before with causing a leak in the block, where we, like I say, we take a lifter out and cause a huge leak in the oil system. This, I have to tell you the truth, I thought would probably have maybe made a 3 or 4 pound increase in pressure with this real high dollar gauge that I got here, which that's being a little bit facetious there. I don't think we're going to see that, but I was thinking we would probably see maybe a little bit of a difference in pressure. But with this cold oil, we're really not seeing any difference in pressure with the external oil line installed. And this is, granted, some people use a -6 line on the outside of the engine. This is a -4 line, which a -4 is a 250 thousandths orifice inside of this. That is a big oil leak, so or big oil supply. So, matter of fact, we can, just to demonstrate that, we need another fitting for that one. I don't like the looks of that fitting any worse than we do, or we'll put it on there just so it's the same fitting, but not really liking the looks of that fitting a whole bunch. It'll be gone after we do our test here. So we have both of our Ford lifters back in here. So we're just going to see what this does if we just open up the hose. So you can see how much, we're almost have the same amount of oil pressure. We've got better than 70 pounds, and we've got an open 1/4 inch line just doing nothing but spewing oil. So that just sort of shows you the amount of volume restriction you can have. So when you're starting up your engine and it gets hot and your oil pressure drops, you can see how much oil is actually still bypassing, and you can still maintain all that pressure. So we've got a full 1/4 inch hose worth of leak, and we still maintain that same style oil pressure. Yet when we pull out one lifter, we have 0. When we put in a Chevy lifter, we have 25. And when we kind of push on the Chevy lifter to block the hole, we can get 40. So you can see how much oil is actually coming out of that hole because we don't have the restriction in order to be able to maintain pressure. Okay, so I drained the oil out of the other engine. I'm putting it in this one. And we did lose a little bit of oil because that has a front sump oil pan on it that has no drain on it. So we did lose a little bit of oil, so probably we only have about 4 quarts in this guy. And we got some oil now in the filter as well. Oil plugs in. Okay, got all that. Okay, so let's see what we get on this engine. Okay, as we can see, we've got really about the same oil pressure, about 78 pounds on this gauge as well. And again, this is a solid lifter engine, not a hydraulic lifter engine. Now we have all the push rods open. There's no push rods in the engine, so there's no restriction going through any kind of a push rod or anything like that. So we got the same oil pressure that we did over on the non-bushed engine. So the next thing that we'll do is we took out cylinder number 2 over there. We just took a lifter out. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a lifter out here on a bushed engine. Now on the other engine, when we took a lifter out, we had 0 oil pressure. As you see, I took a lifter out of this one. I still have the exact same oil pressure. Now if you come over here and look, you can still see how long it takes the pressure to bleed off because you can see the oil coming through the lifter hole. And I'm going to stop the drill. Look how long that pressure takes to die down. It still has pressure the whole time that thing is squirting through. So let's just we took one lifter out of that engine, has 0 oil pressure. Let's take out a second lifter. We have the same oil pressure. All right, let's do something funky. Let's take out 4 lifters. Pretty much the same oil pressure. Take out 6 lifters. We dropped 2 or 3 pounds. Let's take out all the lifters on that one side. So now that is all the lifters out of that side, which feeds the main bearings and feeds this. We only dropped 10 pounds of oil pressure with all the lifters out of the engine. So that proves that we have fixed a leak and we're now maintaining oil pressure in the engine on the main bearings. So this engine no matter what kind of a leak we have up here, what your push rods and all that stuff are doing, the oil pressure is being maintained where we're actually looking to get that oil pressure in, which is the main and rod bearings, and keep those lubricated. This has no restrictors in the can bearing or anything like that. Again, like I said in the first video, we don't run any of those restrictors. All of our restricting is done up here. And as you can see, that fixes your oil issue. As far as what we're trying to accomplish, which is maintain oil pressure in the engine and control and push the oil where we want to push it. So no matter what, you can't pump the pan dry, because right now we're proving here that everything is going up in the engine through this lifter. Well, right now it's draining back down into the oil pan, but just that little bit of oil that's coming through. And you can see also we have a pretty deep sump pan on this one. We only have 4 quarts of oil in this, so we're not pumping the pan dry by any means on that, even with only half of the capacity of what this pan is really rated for. I think they rate these pans at about 8 quarts. We usually only run about 6.5 to 7 in them, because the windage in them gets too much and there's no point, which is also why we recommend with this style pan running an oil cooler, because we don't run a high volume of oil in the pan. We run more volume going through the cooler to be able to cool the oil. But with this, as I say, right now we are within 8 to 10 pounds of our original oil pressure, with 8 lifters out of the engine. Over there, 1 lifter out of the engine, 0 oil pressure. So that's why we bush lifters on our blocks, and that's how we can control the oil. This is the way we do it. This is why we do it. There's a lot of discussion about having engines done, having oil bushed. There's one other thing I do want to touch on, and I've had a few phone calls from people who have called and told me they bushed their block, and really it made no oil difference, no pressure difference or anything like that once the oil got hot in the engine. So I asked how it was done, and I was told how it was done. So I want to speak on this a bit. The way that we do the lifter bore bushings is we put them in our CNC machine, same machine that we actually machine our Titus blocks on, and we align up the cam, we machine them, we put them in. It's a press fit for the lifter, and then prior to putting them in, we put in the oil hole size that we have figured out that is necessary for a solid lifter, hydraulic lifter, or whatever. I've seen a lot of folks putting different size holes in their bushings. Number one, a lot of them are way too big. The lifter hole is way too big. If you do a calculation of the cross-sectional area of the hole that they are actually putting in the lifter, they're not restricting anything. The lifter is not becoming the restriction. Basically, they're just putting a nice surface, a bronze surface in the block. The hole is too big. I will say, I'm not telling you what size the hole to put in it. That's up to you and your individual engine builder, how you want to do it. But I have which I think I'm wearing it, yeah. Back in the Engine Masters days, when our very first engine that we did was a dart block. Now, Dart in our Iron Eagle blocks has a way to manipulate the oil flow to both lifter galleys, which is a very good idea. I fed the whole top of the engine, all 16 lifters, with less oil hole than what I see most people putting in their bushings. And we did that to try to control the oil. Naturally, the engines had to live. We put probably 300 pulls on that engine on the dyno. So it had to live, number one, through that. But we had to run a stock style oil pan. Matter of fact, the oil pan that I ran was very, very similar to this design. It was just for a Windsor block. But we had to run a stock oil pan, and they watched us put 5 quarts of oil, so we couldn't run the pan real low. So we had to put at least 5 quarts of oil in the engine. And we did that for oil control to keep, naturally, a lot of oil, unwanted oil out of the top end and windage and things like that, because we were looking for 1 and 2 and 3 horsepower. A 5 horsepower or 5 foot-pound torque increase across the board was the difference between mid-place and first place. It was that competition is that close. So, like I said, I fed the whole top of the engine with a smaller let's call it a jet, than what I see people putting in each individual lifter. The oil it will go through that small of a hole, much smaller than you really think. The other thing that I have to comment on that is the process by which these are done. There are kits out there where you use one of these guys, you use a certain size reamer, you put it in your block, you ream the block. When you're done, you ream the lifter back out, and then you put in your lifter, and everything's good. I understand the cost effectiveness of that, being able to do it yourself, do it at home, but that's not really a good process. And the reason being is when you take a drill and you have a long reamer like this, you put a lot of play in it. It's like drilling a hole in a milling machine compared to drilling a hole with a hand drill. You're going to come up with a much more precise hole in a milling machine than you are with a hand drill, and that's because you're wobbling and doing. You're basically wobbling out the hole. When you go to ream the size, as we spoke about in the first video, it is very critical. The size of the hole inside of the lifter is very critical to the lifter according to how much oil goes past this little edge orifice and into the lifter hole. That's really your cutoff point from top to bottom of the engine. So when you ream this by hand, and it's a reamed surface, not a honed surface, you're not getting a precise sizing of that lifter. So that method of doing it by hand with a hand drill and then finishing those with a hand drill, I mean, I know sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but I'm not a favor of doing that. It's sort of like trying to, you take your block to a machine shop to have the cylinder bores bored and honed and get them square. You don't go in there with basically a flat drill and a hand drill and a file and try to make your cylinders bigger, because it doesn't work. It's not going to seal. Well, your oil clearances around your lifter are just as important as having your rings to seal in the engine. It's a very close tolerance. So the proper way to put those in, or to do that, is put the lifter in. We actually will bore the lifter out depending upon the size of the lifter that we're having in, or if we use our bushings, we only have about 3/1000 or so, but we hone that. So just like honing your cylinders, we hone the lifter bores, and we hone the lifter bores to size so that we can get a nice accurate size on the lifter bore. So we can control the size of the lifter that way, and not to mention we prefer to hone the bores of the lifters to the specific size of the lifter, because this is a comp cams lifter, this is a Morel lifter, this is a BAM lifter. Some people have Crowers, some people have Iskies. There's all sorts of different lifters on the market. They are going to be different sizes. Just like when I order a crankshaft from manufacturer A or manufacturer B, the mains and the rods are going to be a little bit different sizes. That's why you measure your main bearing clearances and figure out what the clearances are in the engine before you assemble it. Same way with this, but a lot of this stuff is taken for granted because it's not understood the importance of really how it works. We just look at it as, okay, I can put a hose on here, I can do this, and I can come up with this quick fix. But when you have a block also, that most of the time when you have a standard Cleveland block like this, it probably has 100,000 miles on it before you ever started doing it. So the lifter bores are going to be worn. It is also pretty common for lifters to be slightly on the small side, and which gives you more clearance between here. So the reason the lifter manufacturers make the stuff maybe a little bit on the small side is they don't want the phone call back saying, I can't get my lifters in the block. So they make it to where they are going to go in the block. So these, I think, just this little experiment that we did here with, all the lifters in the block, all the lifters out of the block, it shows the effectiveness of really what we're trying to do. So what we did here is we made the best case scenario for this block of making it priority main. We can't drill the block and put an extra main galley and all that sort of stuff in it. So what we did do is make it as good as we can make it, which is we separated the lifters, what feeds the lifters, from the main bearings. So we have separated that cutoff point top to bottom, which you can see on this one, it's not separated top to bottom, because when we take a lifter out, we get 0 oil pressure on the main bearings. This one, we take all 8 lifters out of it, and we still have only about 8 pounds less oil pressure. So I don't think anybody's going to really go down the road with 8 lifters pulled out of their engine. So I think that we're covered there. We're pretty good. But we have shown that effectively you can make this as good as you can with a priority mean block by actually restricting the oil system this way as opposed to other ways. And I think we've tried to outline the other ways. If you haven't, don't know what they are, watch the first video of how we did, you know, we talked about restricting cam bearings and things like that, robbing Peter to pay Paul, where you may be killing cam bearings to save your main bearings, but either which way, something's dying in the engine. So anyhow, that is, I think we've covered just about everything that we can on Cleveland oiling systems. If you guys, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions. I'm probably going to get a lot of haters on this saying this is not the way I do it and I have good luck, and that's great. I applaud you. Do it your way. I'm just showing you this is the way that we would do it, and why we do it this way. Because, you know, I've been thrown under the bus out on the internet before. Well, he only does that because he wants to make money. Well, yeah, I'm in business to make money, but I have to make the engines live. So it's not a cheap operation to do. True, you can buy hand tools and do it, but what are you getting when at the end of the day? You know, you don't try to bore and hone your block, so I don't think your lifter bores are just as important as your cylinders, so you probably should have a professional do that as well. And I'm not saying you got to send it to me, but make sure when you do this, or if you do send it out, that the person has the proper tooling to do it. The hone itself, to set up the hone, just to do this honing, is about $2,000. We use probably $30 worth of stones on every block to hone these correctly to size to make sure that we get it as good as they can. It's not cheap. Granted, you're going to pay money to bore and hone your block. You're going to pay money to do your lifter bore bushings as well. It's a pretty specialized thing. Not a lot of people have the means to do it. And if you want to see sort of the other things, dig back in our other videos back in. We actually showed where a shop tried to repair a block that had tore up a lifter by putting a lifter bore bushing in it. And it was so far out of whack that the owner brought it to us because when he went to assemble the engine, he couldn't get the two lifters to go inside the engine. I could get one lifter to go in, I could get the second lifter, but we couldn't get both lifters in because they were out of angle. So make sure that if you do take this to a shop and have it done, make sure they have the right equipment to do it. Make sure they're not doing it with a hand drill like you're going to do it at home. Make sure, again, that the job is done with the right tools, with the right equipment, and hopefully you'll have really good luck with your Cleveland oiling system. We can make these things as good as we can. It is a very good platform of an engine. Like I say, the oiling system leaves a little bit to be desired. If you like this kind of video, let us know. Let us know if you have another Cleveland topic that you want to do, or it doesn't even have to be a Cleveland. Everyone, you know, thinks that all we do is Clevelands. We do a lot of work on other different engines. I mean, we've got stuff in here from 1940s tractors to Cadillacs and Oldsmobiles and all sorts of kind of stuff. But Chevys, LS's, all the other sort of things. Cleveland's is what we've been doing since, you know, the dinosaurs were around, it seems. But she's been after me to do this video for quite some time. I've wanted to do it, so finally we took the time to do it. But like I say, if you like it, let us know. If you don't, let us know. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few of those. If you want to see this kind of technical video and explanations, we try to explain everything through not just do this because I said so. I want to show you the reason why, the math behind it, the kind of the science behind it, or the explanation of why certain parts work the way they do and what they do. We're not about, you know, black magic and all that sort of stuff. I mean, my tagline for many, many, many years has been scientific performance. We're not just throwing that out there because it looks cool on the web banner. Like our video if you like it. If you don't, subscribe to our channel, help us out. We're going to try to actually grow this a little bit and do some more of these things. But again, give us topics to talk about. Doesn't have to be 100% Cleveland related, but if it is, even a bonus. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
My arm's killing me.